The waters off the northern coast of Alaska were bad enough in summer, when the sun was shining around the clock and you could at least see the ice floes coming at you. But now, in late November, with a squall blowing in, they were about the worst place on Earth to be. Especially in a crab-catching tub like the Neptune II. Harley Vane, the skipper, knew he'd be lucky just to keep the ship in one piece. He'd been fishing in the Bering Sea for almost 20 years, and both the crabbing and the storms had gotten worse the whole time. The crabbing he could figure out. His boat and a dozen others kept returning to the same spots, depleting the population and never giving it enough time to replenish itself. All the skippers knew they were committing a slow form of suicide, but nobody was going to be the first to stop. And then there was the weather. The currents were getting stronger and more unpredictable all the time, the winds higher, the ice more broken up and difficult to avoid. He knew that all that global warming stuff was a load of crap. Hadn't the snowfall last year been the highest in 5 years? But judging from the sea lanes, which were less frozen and more wide open than he had ever seen them, something was definitely afoot. As he sat in the wheelhouse, steering the boat through a turbulent ocean of 15-foot swells and hunks of glacier the size of cars, he had to buckle himself into his raised seat to keep from falling over. The rolling and pitching of the boat was so bad he considered reaching for the hand mic and calling the deckhands inside, but the Neptune's catch so far had been bad. The last string of pots had averaged less than 100 crabs each, and until their tanks were full, the boat would have to stay at sea. Back on shore, there were bills to pay, so he had to keep slinging the pots, no matter what. "You want some coffee?" Lucas said, coming up from below with an extra mug in his hand. He was still wearing his yellow anorak, streaming with icy water.
"Christ almighty,"
Harley said, taking the coffee. "You're soaking the place."
"Yeah, well, it's wet out there,"
Lucas said.
"You ought to try it sometime."